What's going on, everybody, and welcome back. So in this video we're going to try to install a level sensor in my washer fluid reservoir so that I know when my washer fluid level is getting low, and I will not suck any air and therefore run this thing dry on methanol, because if you're tuned for methanol and you're not running methanol, I'm sure I'll notice in the middle of the pull, but it's better to know that you're low on methanol and not use the boost than just to run low every time and possibly do damage. So what I'm going to do is use this sensor, I think, right here, and we're going to try to make a pigtail for this using some terminals. And this is just a sensor off of a truck, and I'm going to put a multimeter on it and show you guys that it works and how it works, and then we'll see if we can install it. I want to try to find a grommet that will fit nicely, and if I can't find that, we may have to pull something out of I have a Silverado that I'm parting out basically in my driveway, and it might fit better in here with something that actually has a pigtail and all that too. So I'm going to see about this first. If I can't find something that makes this work easily, I may just steal the whole setup from that truck, but otherwise it should work. I've been thinking about putting a 90 bend on here just because of the way it might get a little kinked, but I guess we'll just have to see how it goes with the bumper on there, and hopefully it doesn't kink on me and I'll have to just keep an eye on it. So basically, if you look at this little float here, this guy is what is going to actually float when we have washer fluid in there. This guy is going to float like this, and when the fluid runs low, he's going to drop like that. So you can see how this thing, it's tough for me to show you with one hand, but this thing will move up and down with the level of the washer fluid. Anyway, when that's down, it'll actually read continuity, essentially. If we had this guy on the right setting, it'll read continuity. See that beeping noise? It's actually going to read continuity through there, and then when we bring this guy up, he doesn't read anything. So what I would like to do is wire an LED in with this guy. So I'm going to feed 12 into him and run it back, and it's going to run through an LED on the dash. I'll need to find the correct resistance to make sure that it gets the proper voltage, and I'm not sure. I'll have to figure that out, but I'm going to probably see how GM wires these and see if I can do something like that, or it's probably a 5 volt. I don't know how it works, but basically I think I have a resistance reading here of 5.9. I guess that's ohms, 5.8 ohms. I don't know. I'll have to look into it more and figure out what kind of resistor I need in there. But basically, I'm going to have a light come on in the dash. When this guy drops down like this, he's going to complete the circuit, and turn on an LED light on the dash. I'm not sure where I want to put it just yet on the inside of the car. I'll have to figure that part out. Probably somewhere in the console area. I don't know. I'd like to put it by the gauge cluster, but I feel like there's already so much wiring in there, and every time I take it apart, it's like a disaster. So I don't want to do that. So I'll probably just put it somewhere nice and easy in the console, and I want a light for that, and I would also like a light for when the methanol is spraying. So I want to know when the meth is spraying, and I want to know when I have this low level. So that's going to be like this, and I want to make sure this is up in my orientation when I go to insert this, and it looks like there's kind of an arrow on it, so that does point up. This one I actually took out of a vehicle. I sold a switch because it seemed to be broken, and then when I went to replace the switch, I realized that it was fine. The switch was just installed incorrectly like this. So it always read that it was always floating up like this whenever it was actually full. So it would only read correctly when it was actually empty, and then it would read full. So it was always reading empty, which was funny. But anyway, we're going to run it the correct way with this thing facing up. So that's the plan for today. So I'm going to figure out if I got a grommet for that, and maybe drill this guy out and look up some wiring. So I got the washer fluid jug out of the Silverado, and I figure it's going to be better because it already has the grommet for this, which is a specific washer fluid grommet. You know, it definitely is going to hold the fluid. It took a lot of effort to get it out of here. I had to heat it up first a little bit, the propane heater blowing on it, and then I sprayed a little silicone on it, spun it in a circle, and then I just pulled really steady until it popped out, and we got it over here. I got it hooked up to the multimeter, and if I turn the meter on, you can tell when it's full, it's the same as the other one. Basically, the same design as this one, which is out of I think this is out of a 2016 Silverado, and this is out of a 2000. So they're using the exact same thing. I'm almost positive this grommet would also fit on here, but I have a pigtail for this one. I might as well just use this, and the grommet is already on there. So I got the pigtail here, so I can pop this off now. But now I have a way to wire it and have it be waterproof. So I'm just gonna break this thing. Yeah, so now I have a nice pigtail for it, and I can put it on, and it's the same. The up direction is how we'll have it. So I just got to drill the correct size hole, which I measured and marked off on my step drill bit. So I'm just going to put her somewhere in here because I want it to read basically empty well before the level where I'd be sucking in air. So I think somewhere around here would be good because I was looking on here, and there's a lot of jug down here, and they put the level sensor right here, so it reads right there. And this is the jug that you have up high. So, you know, that's kind of your preliminary. And then once you get low, but you still have a bunch, because the pump can only suck from right here. So this little area is pretty much nothing. This is all frozen right now. It's like a block of ice. But anyway, I'm going to drill this guy out. And yeah, we'll see if it fits in the Honda jug. And then all we got to do is figure out the wiring. We can remount this because then we have everything installed that we want. This guy, the level sensor, and this guy. And I think I am going to try to figure out some sort of way to get a 90 on here because this is leaking. So I got to figure out if this is like 1/8 inch pipe thread or what, and then I can maybe get like a fitting that'll 90 this so I don't have a kink, but I'll figure that out. So what I have here is basically a bunch of garbage inside of this little power station here. This is built by my dad in electronics school, and I guess it's like a take-home situation. You get to take it home, and I've used this for a lot of stuff, and it does a lot more than what we're doing right now. But basically right now I'm just generating 14 volts. So I'll see if I can set this thing up in a way that you guys can see, and I'll just show you guys what I'm doing with the LEDs and explain how this breadboard works and stuff like that. You guys have already seen this if you saw my taillight videos. If you haven't seen me make the taillights for the Honda, which I still have to fix because one is broken, but I'd like to do that this winter before I take it back out. And anyway, gotta fix the taillights. This setup right here is the same sort of thing. This is whatever over here. These aren't related, but this is the only thing that I'm doing at this time is trying to power up one LED. So when I turn this on, this guy comes on. I'll show you guys what the voltages are and everything like that. But essentially, we have 14 volts, and we have to exhaust that 14 volts before we get back to negative. And that's what we're outputting here out of positive. And which way the electrons flow doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We got to get rid of that voltage. It's got to go to ground. But we got to get rid of it first. So if we wanted to power up this LED here, we can't send it all 14 volts because The problem with that is it is not rated for that. It's rated for like more like 2 volts. So what we do is we have to resist the current flow, and basically what we put in the circuit is a resistor. You can see this little guy over here. I have entire bags of them here. These are just resistors, and they're all basically have stripes on them, and the stripes correspond to what resistors they are. There's a whole method of reading them, but basically, yeah, you get different resistors that have different ohms. This is very basic now. I know some of you guys probably know all this and some of you know nothing, but basically you resist the flow of current. So this little resistor here is going to suck up some of that juice. So he's getting pretty hot here, almost hot enough to burn me, just that one resistor, because this light's on for a while. And I kind of want to test that, and I want to see if that's like going to be a viable option. Can I leave that resistor, getting hot all the time, taking all that voltage? I think it's probably okay, because it's not like a lot of amperage that we're pulling here. It's really only going to pull, I think these pull 20 milliamps on one LED, but I'd like to make sure that it doesn't burn out. So I'll show you guys how I verify. So without the glare here, you can see that the multimeter, I have it on voltage, so I'm going to test from negative to positive here, and we have, see, our voltage is a little high. This power supply has been kind of being weird lately, so we can dial this back a little bit. 14 volts or so, 14.1, 14.2. So that's, we'll probably never even see anything like that in the Honda, just because the Honda never really charges at 14 volts. It's usually at like 13.8 or something like that. So 14 volts is the max it'll ever see. So we're kind of dialed in there across these 2 points. So now if we measure somewhere like on one leg of the LED and on the other leg of the LED, so if we get right here and right here, we're going to read how much this LED is using. So the voltage drop across this LED is 2 volts, 2.1, which is exactly what we want, exactly what it's rated for, which is good. So this LED is going to be powered up with 2 volts, and that's what we need. So if you do the resistor, you can see how much this guy is using, which is quite a bit, which is maybe what I'm a little concerned. I don't know if that's okay. If this guy is using, a little over almost 12 volts. So he's using most of the voltage here. And I think that's probably, sorry, that hitting the microphone. He's using most of the voltage, and that's probably fine. But I don't know, in fact, if that's good. So I think this power supply drops off after a little while. I don't know why it does that, but we just got to keep turning it up. That's why I was at 16 before. But basically, yeah, this setup, I don't know if that's, maybe it's due to this resistor here, but I mean, it's definitely warm, but it's not to the point where I think it's going to cause any issues. Like if I held my finger on there, I do think it would burn me a little bit, but it's not overly warm. You can see how long I'm able to hold my finger on it. Like it's not that bad. So what I'm thinking is maybe I should spread that out between 2 resistors. I don't know, 2 smaller resistor, or I don't know, because if I wired them in parallel, it would half the resistance. So I would need, I think that's a 580 ohm resistor. So if I have, I think it's 580. I don't know where I got that one from. 680, my bad. So it's a 680. So half of 680 is like 340. So what if I did, see, that's kind of, I don't have one that size. I have a 270. If I did 270s, maybe that would be good, or because that would bring me right around, bring me a little bit lower, so the voltage would be a little higher on the LED, which is What if I did 2 470s? That would bring me at like, no, because it's going to that's going to be half of whatever I put down. So I would need to do, so maybe I can't do that. Maybe I should run them in series. If I run it in series, then it'll add. resistance. I have to figure this out. Anyway, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm trying to figure out. Let's see what this is dropped off to. Oh, see, now we're cranking. It's weird. It seems inconsistent. It's all over the place. Oh well. So, what I decided to do was use 2 resistors. So this is the better setup that I think I'm going to actually use in the car. So I have 2 470 ohm resistors here, each of which takes up about 6 volts. So 6 and 6, and then the LED is left with the rest. And then I wired in with these 2 leads here. I have it wired into all the way into this tester here, going into my switch. So I don't think I think that last video got cut short, but I basically soldered everything together. This is my positive side. The LEDs are directional, so you gotta, the polarity matters. So you gotta send the positive side into the longer leg on the LED. That's the positive side, and then it's grounded over here. So when we turn it on, our voltage is good, and that guy is super bright. So we're gonna see how it looks on the interior. We'll probably drill a hole and stick it through somewhere. Just to blind me, so we'll see how blinding it is. Maybe we'll need to tint it a little bit or something just to dim it down, but I think this is going to work. These guys don't really feel all that warm, so I'm not too worried about them melting. So I have some heat shrink tubing, and I'm going to see if I can put a little of that over here, and then we'll seal it all up, and then this will be a unit that we can install in, and then all we have to do is run the wires to our switch. So that's the next thing that I got to figure out. I guess I got to run 2 wires, one to and one from the switch to complete the circuit using the switch, or I could just send it to ground at the switch and then have this go to ground, I was thinking, and then just make the switch make a contact. Then I could eliminate the need for running 2 wires. So that might be something that I could do. So I'm going to look into that and just figure out how I'm going to run all this stuff. So this is my completed indicator light with the resistors in line. So the side on the right side here, this is the one with the resistors under there, and this side is the negative side, now flipped, and I can basically just drill a hole somewhere and have this poking through, and then these are the connections I'm going to make in the back. So what I decided is I'm going to send power from something, so wherever I get 12 volts from, I'll try to fuse it and then put 12 volts to here, and then this is going to go out to my switch, and so this is going to go into one side of the switch basically, and the other side of the switch is going to go to ground. And so what happens is this has always got power, which is fine because there's no complete circuit there, until the level sensor drops down and closes the switch, and it'll complete the circuit, and then the light will come on, because this guy will just send it right to ground. So when the switch closes, it makes a ground, and otherwise it has no ground, so it won't be on. So pretty simple. That's how it's going to work, and just the hard part's limiting down this to work with 12 volts. And now we can send this guy 12 volts on a fused line, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to fuse this. I should maybe install a fuse on the end of here. I'll see if I have any inline fuse holders and small fuses. And I'd like to put like a 1 amp on there, or like a 2 amp, because it really shouldn't have that much on there. And yeah, try to make it hopefully somewhere easy to get to. I'm not really sure where yet, but I'll figure it out. So yeah, that's good progress tonight. We made our indicator light, and I just got to mount this and run the wires. So what I did was I took one of the leads off of our level sensor, and I put a terminal on it, and I soldered it on there, and I made sure it was the correct terminal to fit inside of here, which is like our ground splice pack. And I hit everything with dielectric grease on the pins there and on the pins here, and I guess this guy too. Why not? We'll get them all greased up, and then hopefully we don't get any corrosion on this, because if this thing fails, that would be a bummer. But I guess I'll know eventually. If it fails, and it blows up, it is what it is. But I think if I plug this in, I should be able to plug that in too. So I might stick this through one of these empty holes. I'm gonna go one in, see if it comes out. I don't think it will. It may just go on now. I'll know if it gets pushed out. It didn't go on. Or maybe I can just clip it in, put it on after. Yeah, I definitely just put that one on. I felt it go on. So, it should be a good ground. We can test, we can verify that is a good ground. I'm just worried about this guy pulling out, which I think, isn't very likely. I'm just going to try to make sure that he does not pull out of his location. I'm gonna get a zip tie. The whole thing going on there, and maybe we shouldn't have done that. Undo that. There we go, and that gets us nice and around there. So that's awesome. So now I want to take this plug off without breaking it, and then let's make sure that we do have a good connection there. I have to get my multimeter, which is downstairs. So I've got my multimeter hooked up here. You can see it's reading OL currently. I don't know if you can tell with the glare, but it is reading OL. So I have one lead hooked up to, oh, my flashlight's dying. I have one lead hooked up to a known good ground over there on the engine. It's not on the battery. If I ran into the battery, I may get a better reading, but just on a continuity test, this wire that I have stuck in this pin going to ground here, which I have ground over here, and somewhere around anywhere from 0.8 to 1 ohm. And then if I stick it here on this lead here, I get, look at that, 0.8, even 0.7 ohms, which is pretty good, for a ground that's really not going to carry any current. That's plenty good. So as long as this stays intact and doesn't corrode, which none of these pins were corroded, and this car made it 20 something years, and I don't drive it in the winter, so I think we'll be good using one of these pins in here. The whole rail is nicely grounded, so that should be good to go. Now the other side of this is going to be from our resistor over there. We're going to send this thing, we're going to send the voltage through this guy, and that's what's going to come back to this switch here. So I just got to get that all situated in the dash, and then I'm going to run a single wire over to here, and that wire will carry the power signal, and this switch is going to be what makes the power signal actually flow and go all the way over. So just got to situate that, and we will get this thing up and running. So guys, I wanted to kind of speed the process up, so I sort of sped up the video a little bit. I did some stuff, and I'll show you guys what I ended up doing. But basically, I think I left off where I was running this wire into the ground over here, And what I ended up doing after that was running the other side of the level sensor right here, this blue wire, and it runs all the way across, all the way over here, and it goes all the way inside of the wheel liner and the fender and in through this hole that I drilled in the firewall over there. I put a grommet, ran those wires through. I also tied it in and did it at the same time and ran the power to the pump. So I got this big red wire here that is actually going to the pump for the meth that's mounted right there. So the pump is powered, the pump is grounded. I got a nice bolt that you can see right here going in for the ground. So I have power and ground to the pump. So now I just have to run in the controller and run a vacuum source, and then I'm going to use this solenoid here to tap into that as well to run the solenoid and make a local ground over here. So just a few more things to wire and plumb up, and this meth system is pretty much there. So we're about halfway done with the meth system, but the intercooler pipes are all run and most of the stuff is clamped. Just have to change a couple of things, but the bumper looks like it's almost ready to go on based on that. I don't really have much else to do around here, so I think I can work on finalizing that. I ordered an 1/8 inch adapter for this. It's 1/8 inch pipe thread, so I'm going to be able to put a 90 on the bottom and then run that to this, so this can come straight out and won't kink, because I'm definitely worried about that kinking. So I'm going to fix that, and then I'll show you guys what I did inside the car to finish up the job. So if you're in the car here, you can see that I've got all my wires over here, and this is what I decided, this is where I decided to put the LEDs. So I drilled a couple of holes, put my LEDs. The one on the left is the red, and that is for the low washer fluid. So I have no fluid in the jug right now, so if I turn the key on, that one will turn red. So it's red, it's definitely really bright. We'll see how it is at night. It might blind me, so I may have to dim it. So we'll turn that guy off. So that is the low washer fluid light. So the positive that I have here, that positive I have running from this guy right here, which is our fused. I found a 5 amp fuse, which is as good as I could do. Found a little 5 amp, and I ran that from the power to the clock. So the clock probably doesn't draw much, and it's got probably ample voltage on that line. So ran it right off, tapped into the clock, fused it, ran it into the positive side of this LED, and the negative side runs all the way down and goes to the switch, and then the other end of the switch goes right to ground. So this completes the circuit when the switch is grounded, when there's no washer fluid, and so that's how that circuit works. And then this other one over here, I can actually power this one up by I got 12 volts on this test light, and if I send that 12 volts to this wire here, it'll light up the orange. Hopefully you can see it. I can snap this in now, or close to it, but see, the orange one comes on, and that should come on when the meth is spraying. So this red wire over here that I have set up is actually going down to the pump. So when that one gets power, it should power up the solenoid, it's going to power up the pump, and it's going to power up this LED, which is grounded to the clock's ground in there. So nothing crazy with that, but that one is the indicator that the meth is spraying. So we got our indicator, we have our pump power wire run, so we just have to run, now we just got to run the control unit to trigger this power wire, and then give the pump, or give the control unit power. And also I think it needs one more wire. I don't know if that other wire was for the indicator or what, but I ended up running it off of this. I think it'll be fine to run off that circuit. And yeah, that's that. So just a few more things to do, and we'll save that for a future video. I think this is where I'm going to cap it off. This thing looks pretty sweet in here once it's all snapped in, so I'm going to just, I wanted to tape it first, so I'm going to pop this thing back out. Just give it a little tape up, and then send it all back in. If I want to take the dash part, I'm going to have to cut stuff, unfortunately, just because I was trying to use terminals, and I couldn't with these thin wires, and I'll do it better someday, maybe, but also maybe not. It's always temporary until it works, and then it's permanent, right? So sorry I end up hacking a lot of stuff together. I know this is it's just the way it goes, but this video is getting kind of long, so I'll take a hike. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned. Definitely more Honda content coming. I know I'm slow to roll stuff out, but
just because I got a lot of projects I'm working on, and I'm really trying to just balance everything. So I'll try to push this video out first before the other stuff, and then I'm going to get some other truck videos out. I recently just blew up the transmission in the truck, and I fixed it in a day. So we pulled it out at work, fixed it, put it back in, and drove home. So it was pretty good. I'm just happy that I was able to fix it with one quick part. And yeah, it's on the road again, so at least I'm mobile. But anyway, I'll stop rambling now. Thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you made it all the way this far, and like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.